City of Breezy Point Planning Commission meeting. I will call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the January 12th, 2021 minutes.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same? Motion passed. Council liaison report. Councilman Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So at the last city council meeting, the Bushman Road Community Project was further by Bolton Bank and approved by city council. There was also further discussion regarding short-term, ongoing, and long-term goals at the city council workshop that took place on January 25th. We also approved the purchase of a new UTV, which was going to be replacing an older model.
Any questions of Mark? Thank you, Mark. Next on the agenda is open forum number 1. Would anyone like to speak? And if you would you please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Okay, I will close open forum number 1. You'll have another opportunity a little later. And move to the next agenda item, which is a public hearing to consider an interim use request. Crystal and Todd Kozelka? Is it Kozelka? Is that close? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from Little Falls, so I'm familiar with those names. Home occupation nail salon. I will open the public hearing for this request and ask the applicant if they would kindly come to the podium for a presentation. Crystal and Todd?
Yep.
Okay.
So we are, Liz?
Crystal and Todd, could you, for the record, could you introduce yourselves and your address?
Yep, my name is Todd Kozelka, this is my wife Crystal. We are building the house at 8677 Golden Butternut Lane. And proposing to put basically a 10 by 16 nail salon in for Crystal, to do nails Tuesday through Friday-ish, roughly 9 in the morning till 3 daily, couple clients a day, nothing, just for her, no employees. That's what we're proposing.
Questions of Crystal or Todd at this point?
There was some discussion in there about available parking in the driveway, just.
Yep, there'll be, I don't know if you got a copy.
I did, and
Yep, so
Okay.
as you come in on the right side, there will be 2 spots. So it's right, I don't have a pointer, but,
okay, would that be on the blue thing?
oh, there it is, right there.
Deb's gonna zoom in there, so.
2-car parking.
2 cars parking spot. Right there.
Is that the road right?
No, it's, the house is actually about 200 feet back
Okay.
off the road. So the driveway will be about, I think we figured 200 feet long.
Other questions?
I do have one.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
I printed off the packet online and it said conditions for approval. Number 1, no outside storage. So I guess my clarification would be, does that just pertain to business or pretty vague when, you know, what if I have a fish house type thing or something like that?
Next, Todd, we have a staff presentation and maybe
Okay.
Jerry could address that at
Okay.
that time.
All right.
We might have questions a little later, so
No, that's fine.
good deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff review, Jerry.
This is interim use permit application 2021-001. The applicants are Crystal and Todd Kazoka. The address of the application, 8677 Golden Butternut Lane. The legal is lot 15, block 3, White Birch 3. The zoning of the property is R1. Crystal and Todd are making application for an interim use permit for a home occupation at 8677 Golden Butternut Lane. The definition of a home occupation is the use of a commercial nature conducted by an occupant of a dwelling entirely within the dwelling or accessory building, which use is clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling for residential purposes. That's straight out of the zoning ordinance, section 153.003. The interim use permit is basically the same as a conditional use permit. It typically comes with conditions and/or a time limit. Interim means just that, interim. It's for a certain amount of time. Typically, if an interim use permit is granted and the conditions are adhered to, once that time limit is up, they usually automatically get redone after a certain period of time. The home that the Kazokas are constructing right now, their intent is to incorporate a nail salon, and a nail salon is proposed to be operated by the owner of the property. I think of nail salon and I think of somebody's going to fix my fingernails and that, and I'm hoping that's the right thing, or the right assumption, but that's my play on it. The intended use meets the definition of a conditional use in a home occupation. The home occupation is a permitted interim use in an R1 zone. The use conditions conforms to the comprehensive plan. The use is compatible with the existing neighborhood, and the use would not be injurious to public safety, welfare, decency, order, comfort, convenience, appearance, or prosperity. The use is consistent with 153.119 and 153.124. In my report are a list of potential conditions that could be attached to approval if the commission so finds. I would address the question. The intent is that there's no outside storage of things that are associated with that business. We're not trying to take away your right to have a fish house or a camper or those type of things, but it's just basically so it isn't. Because of the home occupation is supposed to be within the dwelling and or the accessory structure, the intent is so that there isn't anything outside stored that deals with the business. Potential conditions: no outside storage of business, no signage, maximum number of employees. I didn't know how many were, it wasn't in the application. Their indication is that it's just the occupant, so there wouldn't be any employees other than the operator. All activities be within the dwelling, no accumulation of garbage. Interim use permit would be limited to a nail salon and nail salon only. The interim use permit would expire on 12/31/2006. I think I heard correctly that the hours of operation were going to be like between 9 and 2. Is that 9 and 3? I should also note for the commission's benefit and the applicants and the people in the audience, we did receive 2 written comments about the project. One from Don Wiener and the other from Craig Shodios. I don't intend to read those written comments, but I would suggest they become part of the record. The one comment that I think could come into play here is that one of the concerns was that there would be no hazardous materials being utilized and that there be proper disposal if there are. And that could be an added condition, proper disposal of hazardous materials. With that, if the commission has any questions.
Any questions of Gary? Marcy? Lee? Tracy?
No?
Okay, thank you. Public input. Would anyone like to come to the podium and provide input to this request?
Can I just make one from here? It's just a typo.
Oh, okay,
Jerry said 2006. It's 2026.
there you go. Thank you, Gary.
Cleaning up stuff.
Anyone else? If not, I will close the public hearing and move to the next agenda item, which is official action on. I would entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the interim use application with the conditions of approval following the recommendations 1 through 8, with the additional recommendation of what I would call number 9, which would be proper disposal of hazardous materials.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion of the motion.
Nothing?
Lee? Marcy? Mark, do you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, could we have clarification on numbers 3 and 8?
So I would, if the proper word is amend the motion to include stating that number 3 would be limited to a maximum number of employees of 1 and the hours of operation from 9 to 3.
okay.
I'd have a question about that. Would there be a definition that an employee of 1 would be in addition to the owner? And I would think maybe you don't want that. You want, can the owner be considered the employee?
You could stipulate that it would be individuals living in the home?
Okay.
So then to stipulate number 3 as to maximum number of employees as 1, and that would include the person living in the home.
And what was the other one?
Adding in the hours of operation under number 8 from 9 to 3 p.m.
Do you need a second to the amendment?
We do.
I would second the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion to amend and a second. Any discussion, any further discussion of that amendment? Not all in favor of that motion to
Mr.
amend?
Chairman, Mark's got a question.
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Chairman,
Mark.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to define the days that operations can occur, or is that going to be Sunday through Sunday?
I'm leaving it as is, if anyone wants to make an amendment on that.
Yes, not? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passed.
Now, was that a vote on the amendment or a vote on the motion as amended?
Did we, Patrick?
I had it as a vote on the motion.
Yes, okay. Okay. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. Next item on our agenda is the table variance request from Michael. Michael, is it side? Sade, got it now, okay. Michael Sade. I would entertain a motion to move this from the table for discussion tonight.
I'd so move.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second to move this issue from the table for discussion tonight. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same? Motion passed. Jerry, do you want to lead us into this discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
At your last meeting, we had a public hearing on the proposed variance for working in the shore impact zone and the excavation and a construction of a retaining wall. Based on your discussions after the public hearing was closed, you chose to not take any action at the time to try and get some more feedback from some professional feedback as far as whether restoration was possible. After that meeting, we reached out to some folks from the DNR, and they were helpful with some guidance, but they really didn't have a lot of technical expertise that they could use. They did give some guidance, though. They suggested that we contact the Scott County Soil and Water Conservation Service. And we did that. We talked to Clayton Link. He visited the site, and he prepared a letter that you have a copy of in your packet. Basically, he said that restoration of the site could happen if, in fact, certain things were done in certain ways. That's kind of where you're at right now. The discussion amongst the planning commissioners is whether the variance has some merit, whether restoration is an option. You have as much information as we could get to this point. It was very helpful that Mr. Link came out and visited the site and provided the advice that he did. I don't think any part of this project is easy. But it's in front of you tonight to make a decision.
Questions, Jerry? Tracy?
I don't really have any questions. I've got some thoughts, but no questions.
Okay. Keep those thoughts.
I will.
Steve?
Questions?
No questions, Jerry.
Jerry, could you remind us what would happen if we denied this request?
If you denied the request, the action that you would require would be restoration of the property to the state that it was prior to the excavation. And I think that comes with some caveats as far as Mr. Link's letter was concerned about how backfilling would have to happen, how restoration would have to happen, planting, replanting, and that type of thing.
And am I correct that he has potentially some concerns with how resilient the restoration would be?
Well, I have some concerns because of this steep slope of the hill and getting that slope back to where it was,
Yeah.
without a lot of erosion happening before there's the establishment of planting and that type of thing. I think it's going to be a difficult task. But it can be done.
And the other point of clarification, Jerry, is the variance request is to build a retaining wall, correct?
There's a variance request to build a retaining wall to excavate in the SIZ zone, the shore impact zone. That's basically the request.
Okay.
Originally, there was a permit that was approved for a sand blanket.
Yes. And that stands, correct?
Pardon?
That stands, that does not get removed or affected by action we take tonight.
Well, I think you could take action that would reaffirm that the sand blanket could stay there. I think if you refuse the request, of course, and require restoration, that takes that sand blanket out of the picture, quite frankly.
Tracy, you want to share your thoughts?
Well, trying to do what would be right for the lake at this point. Unfortunately, I think the property owner started the work without the permit to build it to begin with, and so we're kind of in here after the fact. Is that correct?
The retaining wall, yes.
Yeah, okay. So what might be best for the lake, and I am not a civil engineer, but it would seem to me that perhaps an engineered retaining wall of some less height, perhaps closer to the lake, maybe even closer into the zone, say 4 or 5 feet, properly designed, engineered, and installed, and then try to restructure the slope from that point back up to the original peak with engineered backfill, meaning compacted backfill and appropriate soil retention matting. And again, I don't know what you'd call it exactly, but all of it under the watchful eye of an engineer that knows what they're looking at. Might be a way to save the lake, save the slope, save the hill, save the beach. And I would, unless somebody strongly objects to that, I would certainly support that.
I agree with his thoughts.
By the way, I had some additional help and input into that. That's not all me.
Well, you are an engineer.
Well, I'm an industrial engineer.
Yeah, so I had similar thoughts to Tracy. What I was looking at is we're dealing with a situation where this is an after the fact application for excavating something that probably wouldn't have happened had a request come in. So my primary concern is how do we get the bluff back to a maintainable status? And I don't think we can do that with the sand blanket portion in there. I think there's options. I was thinking, could there be a tiered structure so that we can do some things to start building that back so it doesn't continue to erode? Because I think we need to restore that and solve the original bluff situation and prevent that additional eroding and washing out, which is, according to the letter here, a negative impact to the lake. So I don't know what the exact way to do that is, but I think there needs to be some type of wall now built to keep it from continuing to erode. So I would look at making some sort of motion to restore the bluff to its state, the natural vegetation, working with the DNR and the other appropriate areas to figure out what that looks like and kind of go from there.
Am I hearing that there may be consensus on approval of installation of a wall with restoration.
But nothing like what I believe was envisioned originally.
We'd have to be specific about those conditions.
Well, I would think, I'd say a 4-foot engineered retaining wall. And an engineer might tell me 5 foot would be okay, but engineered retaining wall. And then if you look at Clayton Link's letter, he calls it geo-webbing materials to reinforce the area. I assume that means mats in the backfill, compact the backfill, put in a mat that somehow holds the soil, and then put in some more backfill, and you work your way back up to the original peak.
Jerry, if we did take action to approve the request to build the wall with conditions, how would we be ensured that those conditions are being met in the?
Well, one of the things you certainly could do would be to require that there be a plan submitted that shows the wall, that shows the backfill, that shows the planting, and that type of thing that's prepared by a professional. We certainly can engage the Soil and Water District to help us out to monitor some of that. But I think having a plan that's submitted, that's approved by the engineer, probably approve it by the city engineer and the soil and water conservation folks. Get the plan approved first and then make sure that it gets done according to the plan.
Okay, with all of that, is someone prepared to make a motion?
I'll take a stab at it. I would propose that we provide the pardon? Oh. I would propose that we require that there be a engineered retaining wall at the base of the where the sand starts, that would not exceed 4 feet in height, and be an engineered design appropriate to the use, and that behind it, we would allow the reinstallation of compacted soil with, now Blink calls it geo-webbing, and I'm not sure, I'd call it mats that hold the soil in place. And it work its way with the originals, back to the original peak, and that it would then be planted with appropriate landscaping that will help hold the soil in place.
Michael,
Yeah, I'd just love to provide a little bit of input.
would you mind coming up to the?
If I can, you currently have a motion, you should have a second or not to see if that's going forward.
Good point. Now, what your motion is missing, Tracy, is Jerry's suggestion that there be a plan presented to us.
Well, I guess I said engineered. The implication is by a registered certified engineer.
Would you be willing to actually incorporate?
Yes, well, okay. I don't know who's writing this down.
I've got it, sir.
Okay, can you insert designed by a registered professional engineer?
Got it. The other thing, if you look at the picture up here, it identifies a width and a depth on the, is that also something, you just said 4 feet back, does that mean the entire length of the property, or is there?
Well, I'm thinking that it would be the entire width of what has been excavated out of the slope at this point. And therefore, you're gonna try to rebuild the slope starting from 4 feet from behind the 4 foot retention wall.
understanding, basically saying to build wherever that 4-foot retention wall would need to be in order to
To,
restore the slope
re-
to
yes.
its natural.
and did the picture show how far was that gonna be beyond the beach? Wider than the beach?
Well, Before we
Okay.
get Michael up here, let me try to get a second to that motion. Do we have a second?
Do we need to clarify before we second that?
Probably do.
It needs to be as clear as possible, yes.
Can you read back what I think I said?
You identified that you would allow a 4-foot high retaining wall with geo-webbing, there were some pictures included in the packet, with compost backfill. You would require a plan prepared by a professional engineer, and that it would have the review of the city engineer and SWCD.
The intent would be the engineer is involved with not only the 4-foot retention, but the steps of replacing the soil behind it.
Okay.
So would that mean that the city engineer would say, yep, here's a plan that we like, and then we don't have to approve it after that point? They kind of take it and run with whatever's appropriate plan. And if for some reason that 4-foot retaining wall is not able to be produced, they would come back here? Is that what would happen?
My understanding is that they have no authority to do anything other than the 4-foot, and would have to comply with that.
That would be my concern. What if an engineer said that wall needed to be 6 feet to do what it needs to do?
Then we're back to square one, or we're back to square two.
So you want to keep the specification of 4 feet in your
Maximum of 4 feet.
maximum of 4 feet, okay. We ready for a second yet?
Jerry, is there anything we're not thinking of here that you would suggest adding in there?
Well, I think you've got some basic parameters that you're dealing with. The dotting the i's and the crossing the t's come from a plan. And they come from a plan that gets approved by the city engineer and the soil and water conservation folks. The soil and water conservation folks are probably looking at the restoration and the replanting and that type of thing more than they're looking at the integrity of the wall. But the city engineer comes into play in both of those. I don't think that this group can nitpick those little minutia items. I think they have to rely on the city engineer and some of those professional people to provide some guidance.
What's the current width of the sand beach, from the lake to, was that 25 feet? The sand blanket,
It can be up to 50 feet.
why 50 feet?
Width. Water.
Okay, but then the depth,
The depth, I believe it can be up to 25. I don't have that cheat sheet with me, but I can
Okay.
get that.
okay. Well, I can read some thoughts that we wrote down, I guess. Maximum depth of sand blanket, 15 feet landward. Maximum height of retaining wall, I wanted 4 feet. Excavated bluff areas to be restored. Evacuated areas to be compacted in layers until reaching original slope. Heavy-duty erosion control fabric to be utilized in restoration. Restoration areas to be replanted with native vegetation. And again, restoration and replanting plan to be submitted and approved by that would be improved by the Crow Wing Water and Soil and our city engineer. erosion control at water edge to remain in place until replanted vegetation is established. And then set, next fall as a completion date. September 15th, 2021.
If we're still uncomfortable with that motion, we could second it and vote it down. Or we have a second, are we comfortable with
You know, I guess this, this 4 feet that you're talking about, is that something that you're recommending, or?
Well, based on these letters, the implication from the so-called experts is that the taller retention wall would not probably hold the thing back and would not be stable. So picking a number out of the air and trying to, I guess I'm also trying to think about, and maybe this isn't important, but what would be reasonable to look at from the lake? It's not the big wall. It's kind of like a terrace step. If you want 3 feet, throw in 3 feet, make it 5 feet. I don't know what the right number is.
Could we amend it to say 4 feet or as recommended by the city engineer to be structurally sound? But not to exceed, as you said, 4 feet.
Yeah.
Something like that, just to give them a little bit of
Yeah,
leeway, whatever they need.
Yeah,
to-
could be 3 foot 10 inches or 4 foot 8.
I think you did say that by amending it to say up to 4 feet, so at least we're not giving them that ability to amend, because I don't know that, I feel comfortable knowing what the solution is, but I want to make sure that there's something protecting the general gist is restore the wall or restore the slope.
Would an option be that a plan be developed that we would review and approve?
You can make that a stipulation. You could say you want to approve the plans.
Well, that's okay, but I'm thinking that we're trying to get it to the point where the engineers and the professionals take it over. And if they come up with a solution, I don't know why we'd have to look at it and approve it again, but unless you want to approve the color of the wall or something like that.
Mr. Chair.
Gary, would you come up to, the podium, please?
The people make a decision here. A simple comment.
Gary, I'm not going to recognize you unless you're willing to come up to the
Oh,
podium.
good heavens, I'm going to be there 30
Okay.
seconds. Please. We're playing tennis here, folks. Gary Bakken, 29464 Shoreview Lane. The decision you guys are making is a tough one. I've sat through many of them, and they're not easy. But if you read what the engineer specifies, what you're asking there, Mr. Chair, the engineer, the DNR has set forth a recommendation. It's written just like Mr. Donovan said. It's clear and simple. Either yay or nay. We're not going to care how high it is. They're going to tell, the DNR, Soil and Water, are going to tell what they need to do. And that's the point that you're voting on. It's simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you for your patience.
Like we discussed last time, I've been cooperative the whole time, so, I'm more than willing to have anyone input on this, right? So as far as the 4 feet, I haven't seen any documentation or anything like that. So as far as the height, that's kind of news to me, only having 4 foot high. All these plans here, it's actually called GeoGrid, it's actually called out on the print, and compacted to certain specifications. It's all specifically called out. I would be more than happy to have a licensed engineer approve all the prints. All of these construction prints are all per the construction manual for that structurally engineered block specifically. Everything that would be brought in, my entire plan for a long time now, was to have it all, it's specifically calling out 6 inches, class 5 material, structural block, capstone, retained soil, compacted, et cetera, right? From day one, I've been willing to do all of this work with a shovel, my back, friends and family helping out. I've got my brother, my father here to support me. And obviously doing this all for my kids and caring about the lake, which I'm a part of, right? So I just want to call out a couple things that we've been talking about. The structural engineering block with the GeoGrid, it's all per the construction manual. I've talked to the reps, I've talked to engineers, all were involved with coming up with this. I'm not qualified, I have the same education as Tracy, I'm an industrial engineer, but I'm not a civil engineer, right? So all of these prints, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not trying to cut corners, I'm trying to do it right. That's the way I've been doing it from day one, and having as minimal impact to that entire slope. Not cutting down trees and not bringing down heavy equipment, and not making switchbacks to get down there. I'm willing to do the hard work and do it right. Well, I don't know where to go from here, but I mean, I'm trying to use a print that specifically calls out the soil types and everything for what's specifically called out on this print. I just wanted to call that out specifically. So it's not that 4 foot wouldn't work, a 4 foot wall would work, but also what I have up there would work as well based on the construction manuals provided from the specific product. It's Keystone product, Keystone structural engineered block. I talked to the rep, I've talked to the technical experts specifically, and all of that is per the prints which they provide when you buy the product. It's like a 62-page manual. I could provide it to you guys in electronic copy. It's all per the print, and I can show you specific examples, and I can show Jerry or whoever wants to see.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Just 1 second, Gary, I'm going to ask a quick question. Jerry, did Mr. Link review Michael's plan?
We gave Mr. Link all of the material that was submitted as part of the last package.
Okay. Okay. Gary?
30 seconds is all. And it's a rebuttal, I'm sorry, and I apologize to the gentleman, but I've been very closely involved in this. I've been out to the site. What is proposed here is inadequate per the DNR. It's inadequate. It's simple. Do it the way the DNR says, or don't do it at all and rebuild the whole works. End of story.
Michael?
Just briefly, so the last time I was here, Jerry, 5 minutes before the meeting, you handed me the letter from the DNR. I believe it was Heidi that wrote the email. And she said, if it's approved, here's some stipulations. All of those stipulations I'm comfortable with. So just to call that out, and that email was from the DNR.
We still need a motion, folks.
Need a second?
Well, we have a motion, we need a second, I'm sorry.
I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion of the motion. We've been doing for the past half hour. Tracy, do you have any further?
Nothing further.
Pete? Marcy? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Open forum number 2. Would anyone like to speak in open forum number 2? Yes, I'd like to say something. Sir, if you could come up to the podium, please. Introduce your,
My name is Brad Wallace. I live at the property that, 197 Fond Lake Road. I think what might have gotten lost in this whole discussion is when Michael walked in here and told at the time, the city what he wanted to do, he was given a permit. And for some reason, the drawing that he presented at the time, which included the retaining wall, has gotten misplaced. And
It looks something like this. I just tried to rough sketch something out.
so a sand blanket was, permit was allowed. So Michael thought he had the right permits in this. He knew exactly what he wanted to do from the beginning. And I just think your action tonight regarding cutting this back when his good intentions were from the get-go, and Jerry knows how much work he's done over there, but this this plan of yours that you've come up with tonight, I don't really see and you can laugh all you want back there. Come on.
it's inappropriate, all conversations go to the.
Yeah, but I don't need his comments back there.
Joe,
I don't need his comments back there. I don't need him laughing at me. That just is uncalled for. So, this whole thing, bottom line is, Michael knew what he wanted to do. He presented it to the clerk at Breezy Point. They gave him a permit. He thought he had the right one, and now he finds out it's not.
Thank you.
And I'll sit back here and laugh at you.
Gary,
Just a brief response. My apologies to the gentleman and the last comment the gentleman made was your plan. It's not your plan. It's the plan that was given to you by the DNR. Plain and simple. Line item and line item. No discussion. I applaud you on your decision. It was tough. We have to protect our lakes. It's that simple.
thank you. Michael?
So just wanted to follow up on what my father said. So he's 100% right. I came in here when I originally got the permit. I explained that it was on a steep slope. I explained all that. I said, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put in a beach for my kids. I explained it all at the very beginning. I said, it's on a steep slope. I want to put in a beach. And that's what they recommended. I came in not familiar with this process or getting permits or how that worked. They said, okay, you want to put in a beach? Perfect. You're going to put in a sand blanket. It's $50. Since then, I've put countless hours, money, time, effort. I've used up tons of my vacation where I could have spent with my kids just trying to make that investment for them now while they're young. I've been doing that from day one, and I've been cooperative. I've met with multiple people trying to do the right thing. That's essentially where I'm at. So I just want to call out that point specifically. Brad is 100% right. I did come in, I explained in detail. I actually knew a couple people that worked here, had a quick conversation with them, explained in detail. Sure, no problem, sign me off. Great, and I got to work. So just as confirmation.
Michael, I think our intention is that you are still able to have your sand beach.
Okay,
that you're able to install your wall. It may be, depending on what people are saying here, it may have to be a little bit different than your plan. But importantly, that slope gets restored, so the lake is protected. I'm just hoping that this is a win-win, a win for the lake and a win for you and your kids also.
yeah. I just got a little bit nervous when the 4-foot wall was recommended. I had maybe enough space for like a beach chair or something like that.
Oh,
That was very far from what I had envisioned from the very beginning. And like I said, as far as the lake and all that goes, like I said, I put all that thought into the prints and making sure that I called out all the right friction coefficients and what have you to make sure that I have the right soil type and the right levels. And like I mentioned last time I was here, I'm not trying to save $1 using coupons, going to Menards to buy block. I've got 75-pound structural engineered block, GeoGrid. I've had countless conversations about it, trying to do the right thing. I've already weighed out 1,000 other options, and this is the best as a win-win for the lake and for myself and what I'm looking for. And it's built to last. That block is, it's gonna last a very long time, where you're not gonna have the issues of anything happening.
I'm feeling more, for what it's worth, I'm feeling more confident tonight, Mike, that this is going to meet your needs and the need to protect the lake.
Fantastic. As I walked away, the motion started, so I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. So I just wanted to just make sure we were all on the same page.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark?
As a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I think, the applicant made a good point that I think they misunderstood what was being discussed, but ultimately, the end goal of him getting approval was achieved, so he wasn't denied. And granted, I did notice that there is a 30-foot drop that's, relatively significant from top to toe. So maybe he needs multiple 4-foot retaining walls that are tiered or terraced with geotextile fabric, in which an engineer will allow him to be able to do that in a responsible manner that protects the lake and still, appeals to the better nature of this commission.
Right. Anything else for the agenda tonight? Anything else for discussion?
With the possibility of belaboring this whole discussion, it was my understanding that in order to build a retaining wall, at some point in time, P&Z would get involved with it. But the fact that only a sand blanket was permitted, it's kind of like an over-the-counter permit, was my understanding. So there may have been a big misunderstanding, I don't know. But I was led to believe that it was only a sand blanket that was permitted. And and had it been for the wall too, it would have had to come before this body. And it never did come before this body.
Anything else? Anybody else? Jerry, do you have?
No.
Okay. Lee? Okay. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.